So, about that Mobile World Congress.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Stick around for your daily charge. Well, good morning and welcome to the Daily Charge. It's Thursday, February 13th. I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Bridget Carey.
And here's the latest from Barcelona. So the world's largest mobile show is not happening this year. It was originally scheduled to run from the 24th to the 27th of this month. The GSMA, the organization that makes the event happen, announced MWC is canceled. The CEO of the GSMA said, the global concern regarding the coronavirus outbreak, travel concern, and other circumstances make it impossible for GSMA to hold the event. Now, prior to MWC being canceled, a number of companies announced they would not be at the event. LG, Nokia, HMD, AT&T, Facebook, Cisco, Intel, Nvidia, Sony, Sprint, Vodafone, and others were already not going to MWC. So what happened? The coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, that name is by the World Health Organization. Bridget, what do you make of this?
This is just fascinating because you never hear something like this really happening. You had 2,000 or so companies planning to attend, and now there's all these questions of, okay, the big companies, they can have their own press events. Mm-hmm. They can have their own meetings, but what happens to all the little guys? What happens when, people who wanted to show off the powers of 5G and make these deals, how will that shape for the rest of 2020? This is a place where if 2020 was supposed to be the year for 5G and deals and conversations will be made to shape that, will that mean that you won't get a cool phone that makes you want to buy something new that isn't from Apple or Samsung?
Yeah, you would think Barcelona would be decked out with great 5G coverage in the area so that people could demo all of these amazing new phones, all these other products that would be available. But with enough wireless carriers not coming, and then you don't have phone companies coming, and then you have nobody coming.
I mean, deals will still be made, but we are holding onto our phones longer than ever before. We need incentive to see what's new and cool. So yeah, a place like MWC is where the new and cool happens.
And the weird thing is, the past couple of years since we've been on LTE, we're finally getting 5G in a much wider way. This would have been the year where we would see really great phones. So I've been waiting and holding off on phones for a while because I'm waiting for 5G. I don't want to get stuck in the middle. But it's such an unfortunate time for this stuff to happen. I know it's really cool to have these kinds of tech in one place, but you know what? We do have the internet and we do have phones and Skype and everything. Do you think these conferences are even necessary anymore?
Yeah, have a 5G demo in places where there is 5G from people around and teleconference it in. Is it necessary? It's a question everyone's asking. There's worries that if you cancel something like this, companies will reevaluate their budgets and go, next year, do I even need to go? And will that mean MWC isn't as big or as important as it has been in the past? Because think of all the money that has been poured into these companies, especially the smaller ones who, maybe be overspending outside their budgets to plan for it and have a presence there. And then it's a week and it's canceled. So some have even said they're still going anyways to have some side meetings because they already have the plane tickets and hotel rooms and whatnot.
Yeah, that sounds pretty crazy that people who are willing to keep going, forget it, there's no conference, we're going to go to the Starbucks and we're going to show you what we got instead of just going ahead with the conference. Now, we'll talk a little bit about the coronavirus for a second. Please do your research before freaking out. We'll have links to the CDC and the Mayo Clinic for information. So let's move to a lighter story, shall we? Netflix is letting people watch To All the Boys I've Loved Before for free. It's a movie promotion for the sequel. Now, there's no sign up. You don't need to give an email, credit card, or anything. Bridget, do you think we're going to see this happening a lot with all the different streaming services out there?
Short answer, yes. I'm also feeling so happy that you don't have to actually give credit card information. Okay, that's refreshing. But there's so much to watch, Ayaz. They're going to be desperate to do stunts like this to get people to get hooked on something. But will the first movie get you hooked to subscribe to Netflix? It's just
you want to watch the sequel.
But
how else are you going to do it?
I guess. I mean, I can understand when you see the first episode of a TV series and you're like, okay, now I want to sign up for the whole TV series. But I'm like, oh, it's just one more movie in the sequel. It's an interesting tactic.
Yeah, I think it's going to be free in the U.S. and up until March 9th or so. So it's not going to be free forever.
Did you see the first one?
I have not seen the first one. I know of it.
There's so much out there that I'm not oh, that's the movie that's going to get me to go to Netflix. No, I'm already on Netflix. But still, it's not the draw thing for me.
I'd read that Netflix was crowing about how well this movie did on their service in the past and how people were really connecting to it. And so they're really glad to be sharing this. Of course, all that flowery language. I could see lots of companies doing this. YouTube has done this in the past with YouTube YouTube Red and now Premium, where they made Cobra Kai free for everybody. Cobra Kai is a great show. Watch it. I'm not being paid to say it. I love that show. It's really good.
I did not expect you to say
Season 1 is really great. Season 2 is a little ridiculous, but YouTube's been making a move to take its premium content and make it free. That way you get the chance to see it with ads and everything else.
I don't think Disney has to do that, though.
No, they're like, we got Falcon over there, and we got Scarlet Witch over there. We're all good. We don't need your issues there. I think we're going to see a lot of this. There's so many different companies going to try this, and it's
like back in the day when you had that free week of HBO or Showtime, and you're like, oh, yeah, I get to finally see something. But it never got my family to actually subscribe. I just tried to binge as much as I could.
The weird thing is Netflix could be putting ads on a free version of itself, which they claim they will never put ads on their service, at least as long as you're paying. I can see that. Surprisingly, the only ad in this free thing is to subscribe to Netflix. That's it.
Yeah, they could do a twist there.
All right, so let's stay focused on the industry side of the impact of the outbreak. How do you guys feel about MWC not existing this year? How do you think these companies are going to handle a lack of trade show? BVG, what do you got?
Oh, we got a lot of conversation going on here. It is a sensitive subject, so we appreciate everyone, treating this very kind and considerate. And, it's a lot of different impact going around. We're trying to stay focused on our tech side of things. We're not trying to, scare anybody. We know this is a range of different variables that affect the world at large, but let's stay focused on our slot in this. So Timothy says, technically, MWC canceled after the majority of the vendors already pulled out. Right. So they were already forced to cancel, essentially. If they canceled before the vendors pulled out, that would have been a different story. That's a great point, Timothy. We do have a laundry list of all the different companies that had been pulling out prior. Hold on, I'm pulling it up here. Let's take a quick look.
Yeah, I was going through some of them too.
I mean, already it was going to be a ghost town, and that's everybody's right to decide on behalf of their own well-being. We had Nokia, Facebook, Intel, Sony, Amazon, LG, AT&T, Cisco, Vivo, Ericsson, Sprint, Nvidia.
Some of them were like, "Oh, we canceled our keynote, but we'll still have meetings." It was a little wonky in some of them.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, I wonder how much money the GSMA took in, as in were these booth areas, were they paid for? Are they refundable? What are they doing with that? Because even if all these companies pulled out, I don't know if they got their money back. Because I believe one of these companies decided to leave, and an article mentioned how an area the size of a football field would have been vacant because of the size of the footprint of this booth. This kind of stuff, I'm really curious about whether were they trying to resell those areas? Did they refund the money or not? So whether or not, I don't know how this is going to come, what other news we're going to get out of this, but
it's a domino effect. I mean, some people I'm sure already were shipping things over. They already built things. I mean, okay. Though some of them probably could take the hit and others probably can't. And now they have to scramble and figure out what they're going to do financially.
A lot of people are asking how this is going to impact things down the road. Ryan is saying it's not a techie question, but with MWC, what's going to happen to the Olympics? And Adrian is asking if this is going to go as far down the road to impact CES next year.
Well, I mean, the articles we're talking about, before MWC was canceled, the GSMA was putting out information about how there would be infrared scanners or special scanners to check on people. Basically everything that's going to be at airports to alleviate some of the concern.
Right, and that would be scanning if you have a fever, I'm
Something
assuming.
like that.
Yeah.
So there was all these different measures to make sure that, this is going to sound weird, the people entering were healthy, and there would be masks available, all kinds of sanitizers available.
It's already bad enough going to a trade show. Everyone gets sick at CES. It's already bad if everyone's shaking hands. So probably the flu would have gone around.
They advised not to shake hands. That was okay.
Right.
Another thing, it's a weird thing. You go into the conference, you got to meet people, and you don't want to be rude, but you also don't want to get sick. So you got to figure a way around that. So I think it's going to essentially come down to a conduct code, and probably little stations. I don't want it to be like the airport, but it might have to turn into the airport when it comes to the amount of screening you have to do to get in.
Timothy says Sony didn't even attend CES last year, and they seem to be doing just fine. So he's got a point. These trade shows don't absolutely make or break things, but it is worth talking about when it's so rare that something is impacted so heavily by a cultural phenomenon like this. I don't know, is phenomenon even the right word? That seems insensitive.
Event.
I don't know.
Event.
Let's call it an event. That it is worth conversing about, especially when it is impacting so many at the same time.
Yeah, I would jump on that and say you guys should read Shara's story on this. She kind of put in perspective on like what that impact can be when you don't have an event. It's not that, oh, poor Sony or LG. It's, this MWC event is why we have the first Google phone, because it was a dinner meeting between two guys talking about could there be a Google phone, and then months later there's a Google phone with HTC. So it's more like what is done behind the scenes to shape the future and shape that conversation of what is coming next in phones. And it's also the small guys who, there was a tweet from a game maker going, man, I had all these meetings set up to really show off how my mobile game would have been great on 5G. They're not going to do a press event, and but they count on those eyeballs and how everyone just comes together.
The other thing is these trade shows do evolve a lot. I mean, the Consumer Electronics Show used to be like the one, and there was actually two: the winter one and the summer one, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And it used to be about laptops and computers. And then cars started showing up. People were like, why is Ford here? What's tech in cars? And that completely took off. And then we see a lot more smart appliances. Mm-hmm. So like Mobile World Congress could be shifting over the years. So these trade conferences, while they're great for meetings and everything, they have slowly been able to evolve and change as the technology has changed. So you see things you probably wouldn't have seen. I remember like one year, everything was about e-readers at CES. That was like the biggest thing, best thing ever. Like, ooh, look, you have an e-reader. Next year was all smart displays, and then whatever. You always get this new cycle of what is everybody jumping on? So that's another thing that these conferences are helpful for. When you see like 30 different companies coming up with a similar form factor on a device, you go, okay, maybe that's the way things are going. We are going all foldable, or we're not doing that. That kind of signals, that's really helpful when you have everybody in this one location at this one time period.
Mm-hmm.
I like that Bridget made the point. This really isn't that impactful for the likes of the big guys, because they're already standing on their own 2 feet. But it's the up and comers, the developers, the app creators, the crowdsourcers, the Kickstarters. They're the ones that are really going to pay for this, and it's very unfortunate. I want to point to Twitter for a second. Simon Poulter says companies will adapt and find other ways to present their new products and technologies this year. It's the absence of genuine human interaction, engagement, technology discussions, networking, etc., that will arguably be the biggest pain point. So, as far as alternatives go, I like this conversation that's going on in our YouTube chat between Brian and Eric, who are saying they should find a way to do Mobile World Congress virtually. And then with the internet age, video calls are a normal thing. Do we think we're going to see a whole lot more like big giant Skype conferences? Is that the answer to this?
I guess you could. I was just thinking there is something to be said about the in-person interactions and getting you sold on an idea versus like, okay, that's a nice low-end phone. Okay, versus like you see virtually, there is something still to be said about, I don't know, being in person.
Yeah, there's definitely
somewhere.
a barrier. Like when you go to one of these events and you go to a booth, you can see people like gathered around something. Now you're like, what's that? Mm-hmm. You might not do that if I send you a spec sheet and go, here's this thing about my new device. Mm-hmm. You might not even enter that virtual conference because you're just like, I'm not impressed by this. But you don't actually know what you're looking at until you're there. So I think the lack of person-to-person does hurt. Would they move virtually? I could see some companies doing that for just secrecy's sake, honestly. Mm-hmm. But then again, they can't control certain things. Secrecy is it's a lot easier when you're controlling the room. Like, do you have a device or do you have a camera on? Because if I'm conferencing with somebody and it's a product that I don't want to be talked about, I don't know who's taking screenshots of it. I don't know who's taking photos of it. I don't know if somebody's got a camera on it. You could really lose a lot of confidentiality with that. So that might actually be an issue, especially when deals are supposed to be, some of these deals are made behind closed doors.
That's
and we're
true.
not supposed to know about certain things. And as long as you just don't know who exactly is seeing what you're saying. So that could be a bit of a difficulty. It might actually restrict the amount of people in those conferences.
Mm-hmm.
We got a slight pivot here. Rob is asking, why did Samsung have an event right before Mobile World Congress instead of just participating?
Oh, they're an example of doing their own thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
but they have the funds and the resource to do so.
Well, they used to introduce their stuff at Mobile World Congress.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the S phones would be released, and then eventually, due to the fact there was so much stuff coming out at one thing, Samsung would be doing something, LG would be doing something. They'd basically be sharing the spotlight, and those two companies, if you don't know anything about LG and Samsung, they hate each other. They literally have vice presidents, at least this was true at least a couple years ago. They have vice presidents whose job it is to irritate the other company. I'm not making that up. They actually do things to annoy the other company because they are such fierce rivals. Samsung, I just think, got sick of sharing the spotlight. So they have their own event, and they're big enough that people go, oh, it's a Galaxy event. Okay, great, I'm going to go see that. Versus going, what's a Galaxy? Because like when the first S, we were talking about this.
They're all named differently in the beginning, right?
It was like Skyrocket and like Flight. I don't know what the other one's called. They all have ridiculous names. It wasn't until the S3 that they were all called the same thing on every carrier. So that's, I think since it's a mature product, they can get away with it.
Shouting out to Marcia Woodham on Twitter and Periscope. She's saying most will still launch their new phones from what I read up on. I wanted to see if we did have any information coming down from sources that anyone has said that this will impact a release schedule in any way, shape, or form of products we already knew were coming down the pipeline.
If that's a question about supply side stuff, there are some concerns. I mean, when it comes to the area of Wuhan, obviously that whole area is quarantine, and some manufacturing is anywhere near there is stopped. But it's from what I read, it's not like the phones that are coming out are impacted. They're just concerns like, will there be a domino effect? And I believe Shara's story even said something about how it could be accessories too. Like I have down here 45 million pairs of AirPods could be caught in limbo if there are issues with manufacturing warehouses and whatnot in that area. So there are supply side big question marks. I don't think anyone's has actually hard said, yes, there is a delay because of this.
Next one coming up, let's take one from Timothy, our good friend Timothy, always loaded with fantastic questions. Will airline companies provide refunds for those on their way to Barcelona?
Well, a few of us are finding that out ourselves. We have some on our team that were going to Barcelona, and Rich, our colleague, said that they were going to give credit. So I'm sure they're working something out when you have that many. When you have that many people all trying to cancel their flights.
Well, I wonder did he get the insurance part where you can actually cancel for any reason?
Right.
Does this count? So, I mean, airlines are airlines are airlines. So I'm going to say...
Which is why people are going anyways,
That might be, it's like, I've already spent $8,000. I think I'm just going to go and risk it. I'll be on the plane alone, though.
If you want a great vacation, I'm sure there's a lot of hotel rooms now open for cheap in Barcelona.
Probably.
All right, let's take one more about MWC before we move on to a lighter topic. How will this one hits close to home, how will companies like CNET react to the change in schedule for fellow journalists or those YouTubers already buying their tickets and hotel accommodations? What does this mean for us?
Well, I mean, since the event was canceled, we're not sending anybody.
Yeah, we're not
We're all
sending
going to
anyone,
take vacation that week.
But it kind of goes back to the point of I have seen some journalists say that they're on the fence on what they do because it impacts their wallet more when they have to go buy that plane ticket and go. And it's why we're hearing some companies going, yeah, if you're going to be there, I'll take a meeting with you. And, and just like, I don't know if they were joking or not, but I have seen people on Twitter go, okay, I guess, do I just go anyway and enjoy a little bit of Spain? There are a lot of questions and everyone has to kind of figure that out. And it really stinks for people who like now have to wonder what are they going to do with that investment.
I might get in trouble for saying this, but I would think some of these news organizations might put some pressure on the organization creating these events going, hey, we don't know if we can send our people there.
Right.
And that might actually influence the decision of something like the GSMA to go, okay, we can't really. So if nobody's coming to do this and we lost over 50% of our vendors, we really should cancel because there is an impact. If somebody says we're not covering any of this, we can't do this, that could influence if the event even happens. So I would imagine that the concerns of giant news organizations are weighed when deciding whether or not to continue with the conference.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that was a great conversation, guys. Thanks. It actually helped me because I feel like I'm not well educated enough on the subject going on. So actually having this window through our industry into how this is impacting the populace, it's actually very helpful. Again, we'll put links in the description and tweet to the World Health Organization and Mayo to try to help get better information out there. We're definitely not the authorities on this, but thanks for talking with us about how this is actually going to hit Mobile World Congress this year. Pivoting over, Ayaz, Netflix.
Yes.
Goddamn Gonzo. God, I love that name so much. He asks, what's the point of watching that one movie to get you sold on Netflix? There's a free trial for a reason. If anything, you can have the week trial and then add the credit after the trial is over. Now, he's got a point. Not everyone wants to see this one single movie, but is this just a case of Netflix really kind of wanting to platform and trumpet their original content, how they're trying to get more attention from things like the Academy?
Yeah, I definitely think it's about getting eyeballs on the sequel. If you have this thing for free, yes, if you go ahead with the free trial with Netflix, you've got a selection of lots and lots of stuff. And what are the chances of you checking that out? Now, maybe Netflix was doing something to see what the reaction is to this movie. Also, it's available in a number of markets. I don't know if they were always available in all these different markets, so that could be a useful way. Since it's a Netflix original, that's usually global anyway. So I think making it free and not dealing with people with VPNs and also with this free trials, you need to put in a credit card.
Right.
It also makes Netflix seem more friendly. Like, oh, they're actually letting us watch something for free. Not like this thing where you're, oh, if I forget to cancel, I'm paying $9 or $14 or whatever dollars it is per month.
That happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I think that might be also like a goodwill kind of move of, hey guys, yeah, you could do this for free. That's great, but we're letting everybody watch this with no strings attached, and that could just be building goodwill for itself and the movie.
Yeah, and it's Valentine's Day, so it's that whole romantic movie stunt tied to a time. And maybe to answer the question a little bit more, why that movie? Maybe to kind of, if you didn't really think Netflix had like anything worth, like, oh, what's the quality of Netflix? Is it just a bunch of, Hallmark movies? No, watch this and you'll see that, what the buzz is all about. It's a high quality, maybe.
They don't have Hallmark movies, not enough.
You know what I mean? Like people might question the quality of it, and this kind of show.
So I love Hallmark movies. They're just ridiculously bad. They're just so like, it's the same ridiculous concept. Somebody comes to their hometown. It's always a Christmas movie. They go from their high stress city job and they go to their little town. It's always snowing. They run into the person from their high school. They fall in love again. Something bad happens, and then they get together because they both find the meaning of Christmas.
In their small town.
Exactly, and they're going to stay in the small town forever. That's every Hallmark movie, every Christmas movie ever, and I love those shows.
Tried and true method. Brian asks, he says, interesting move, Netflix, and then CBS All Access, disclosure, CNET is owned by CBS Viacom.
It is?
CBS All Access seems to be luring people by posting premiere episodes on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yes, this is not a new practice, but...
With Picard, right, you could watch the first episode.
Which is dope, by the way. Again, I'm not being paid to say that. The new Picard show is dope. But what other ways are companies trying to get you to cut the cord? What are some other good promotional efforts that we've seen from the likes of a Netflix or a Hulu or so on and so forth, trying to get you, the first taste is free? One I recall is, Ayaz, do you remember when Rick and Morty premiered and where it premiered?
No.
Bridget, do you?
No.
Rick and Morty premiered on Instagram, if I remember correctly, in increments, or was it Snapchat? Maybe it was Snapchat, I forget. It was one of the two where they had, the short video, so you had to watch it in the 15-second increments to get the entire thing, and they just rolled it out over a long period of time. And that, I thought, was a stupid move, but, look where they are now.
We did see Netflix. They're working with Samsung, and they're going to introduce extra content for Samsung phones first, which is really strange.
But you have to, if you have the Samsung phone, you have to dig into the menu to find the
Samsung's
extra
members channels or something.
And it's really bonus content and things you like. They're also doing lots of partnerships with Verizon. You get Disney Plus with Apple. If you bought a new Apple gadget, they'll just throw in that Apple TV Plus to get their numbers up during these launch times.
It sounds like such a bad, Apple TV comes with Apple TV Plus. Great.
Yeah.
That's great. I don't care.
Well, it's because, what do you do to get people interested? That's their version of the free, dip in.
They give you a free year. That is a good way to get people hooked eventually. If, I don't know, the programming side on that, I'm a little bit iffy on when it comes to The Morning Show and C and...
Jason Momoa.
Well, Jason Momoa is great, but I don't know if I want to watch C. But yeah, so like I was saying, YouTube did give away some of their stuff for free. There's also other free streaming services. I can't remember an Instagram or a Snapchat kind of exclusive way, but that's news to me. Other services, Amazon, obviously, if you got Prime, they try to bundle everything with Prime. You get free music, you get free video, shipping,
storage,
photo storage.
It's almost like the backwards thing. Like you're already here for Prime, but here's some video too,
Yeah.
You got to also take into consideration the content itself has to be mass appeal too. You're not going to see a lot of R-rated movies on there. Shout out to Adrian and Timothy for pointing that out. The content has to be the right kind of content, You can't just go and put out, they're not going to put Deadpool out for free, that's for sure.
Well, not yet.
As much as I wish they would.
I'm sure they also are looking into ways to hook kids who are desperate. Parents are like, all right, what am I going to give you in front of the phone to watch? Oh, look, here's this free kids show. That's easy to get. That's another way that they can hook people into, like parents who are desperate for content they could trust.
You're both parents. What is your take on that? I mean, if a company gave you something, what would they have to give you to be like, oh, okay, thanks, I'll hire you as a babysitter next?
Oh, you mean like for content?
Yeah.
Well, I don't even really have to worry too much about that because PBS is free and it's like the easy trust one. Like there's an app, PBS, you just say like where you live and boom, you get your educational Daniel Tiger's good stuff. You don't have to worry too much.
You can also
Unlike
get it through
the
a
junk on
$12
YouTube.
antenna too.
No, you just on the phone.
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying,
you could get it for free with an antenna.
That's
as well.
true. I know, but
I'm just thinking. I've always hated the idea of using the phone or screen as a babysitter. I told my kid when he was 2, his taste is terrible and stuff. He goes, Dad, it's not terrible. I'm like, we're gonna watch other things. You're gonna get into what I like. So we started watching Voltron, the old Voltron, the new Voltron. We started watching. Now he's got me into My Hero Academia because Liz is watching it, my wife, I'm watching it, and we're watching it. So
It's a good show.
There's no babysitting. It's babysitting all of us. We're all like, oh, All Might. What happened to All Might? And then I can't. No spoilers here, but it's.
Netflix has good stuff, and I'm kind of on with you on that because the kids have bad taste.
Yeah.
So we started watching She-Ra. She's just 3, but she's into She-Ra, and I'm like,
She-Ra's awesome too.
Yeah, and then also the superhero girls are way above like maybe her watching age, but then she's really into it too. Because it's like you can kind of as a parent like steer them in the right cultural direction.
You're getting them to imprint Wonder Woman early so that they become an effective comic book geek later in life, right?
Yeah, like
It's a strategy.
I didn't know who Zatanna was that young. I'm so proud of my daughter for liking Zatanna.
Oh, they're going to be bigger geeks than any of us could ever dream to be. We're just about out of time here. I want to pitch out a question for funsies. Tweeted us throughout now and through the weekend. What are some of the best free taste shows that you've experienced so far? And those trying to get you to sign up for their streaming content. Also, what are some of the better kids shows? I want to see what you think. We've named She-Ra. We've named Superhero Girls. We were talking about what did you say? My Hero Academia. I'm gonna go ahead and throw out Last Airbender is another really good one that ranges a broad scope of age groups of appeal. Sound off. Let us know what you think is really tasty out there. And for the meantime, everybody stay safe out there. Wash your hands. Get back into the elbow high fives. And we will not be live on Monday because Monday is American holiday, is President's Day. So everybody have a great weekend, 3-day weekend for us. And we'll see you back on Tuesday. Until then, Ayaz, go ahead and take us on out.
If you want, we would love it if you would subscribe and ring the bell to join us weekday mornings and be a part of the daily news cycle here at CNET. Can you tell I'm reading this? Links to all of today's stories are, as always, in the description below. And this show is also available as an audio podcast. So if you don't want to see our faces, you can do that. Links to subscribe to that are in the description as well for the Daily Charge. I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
I'm Bridget Carey.
Thank you for joining us.
Can't get enough? Check out the Daily Supercharge, our extended post show with special features, audience Q&A, and in-depth reviews. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.